Hello everybody, this is the Empirical Audiophile. What I want to talk about today is something that I see a lot of. In fact, in my lifetime with my equipment, I've been told to do this little tweak. And anytime it's brought up, I always look at the people and say, well, I don't mind doing it, really, if it works. What guarantee you got that it would work? No one gives you a guarantee. And let me explain to you what I'm talking about. Like, you have a connector like this. This is a connector, goes on the back of an amplifier or a speaker, and you look at it and it looks like a decent connector for your speaker wire going to your speaker. It has it so it can take banana, spade, whatever you want. It looks like it's pretty decent made. It's all been plated, gold plated, to protect it from oxidizing, but it's made out of steel. Now, the back of my speakers have steel connectors, clips to them. And in fact, a lot of equipment, my old clips, Hershey's, they have steel connectors. In fact, a lot of old equipment has steel connectors. Look at all your, let's say, your receivers. Marantz, Fisher, Samsui, Pioneer. Look at the back of them. They all have steel connectors that connect up your speaker wires and to connect your RCA. But recently, a lot of people say, well, you can't have steel. You have to have, definitely have to have brass. That's far superior. And I always look at rhodium plated, and I look at them and say, yeah, fine. It's going to cost quite a lot of money per speaker, over $100+ per speaker, plus my time, trouble taking everything apart and remachining everything. Before I go through all that trouble, what's your guarantee that it's going to make a difference? Well, it's going to make a difference. What's your guarantee? You're going to give me my money back for my time and trouble if it doesn't work? Really? Are you that sure it's going to make that much of a difference if I replace something that is steel with brass? It's going to make that much of a difference to make it worth the time and trouble, because there's a lot of receivers, a lot of amps that are made that have steel RCA connectors, steel connectors for your cables, for your speaker cables. And a lot of people will claim they sound just fine without replacing any of the steel connectors. And a lot of them, as time went on, started plating their steel connectors with gold, a small layer of gold plating to help them from oxidizing. And in reality, even if you have excellent connectors and they will oxidize anyhow a little bit when you hook them up together, and they need to be cleaned periodically. You need to unplug and replug in your RCA cables and everything. They say you should do that at least once a year. Unplug and replug in your RCA cables and everything else, your speaker, undo them, put them back in, clean things to sonically keep the best sound coming to your speakers or through the system. And I just want to say, nobody tells you. They all say it will sound better, but they put it on a piece of machinery or they put it on a scope and say, see how it improves it. But that's not my hearing. That is not my hearing. That piece of electronic equipment is not a human ear. It's a facsimile of a human ear, and all human ears are different. But this goes around all the time that to a lot of audiophiles, this connector, even though it's a very nice connector, would be considered to be garbage. Oh, it's made out of steel. Why'd you do that? I don't know. Why did Clips use steel connectors? Why did Eltec, JBL, Samsui, Jensen, RCA? Why do they all use steel connectors? And to this day, a lot of these speakers I'm talking about are known for their high quality sound, yet they all have steel connectors. None of them have brass plated connectors, they're just metal connectors. So you really have to start wondering, what are people trying to convince people that little things like changing a connector, and if it's steel, it's no good, it's better if it's brass. And I'm sure I'll get comments of people say, oh yeah, I'll make a difference. I'll be more than happy to listen to you. Do you guarantee what you say though? Do you guarantee that you will pay me back every penny I put into something if I do not hear a difference? I don't care what it looks like on a scope. I don't care what it looks like on a computer screen. I want to know what it's going to sound like to my ears. I've been in this hobby a long time, and I know people deceive people just because they can. You can go to a salon to go buy a piece of equipment, and the person at the salon will convince you about how great something sounds, and you could be listening to it, and because you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to admit that, you know what, I don't hear it. I'm sorry, I don't hear it. I don't hear the great sound that you're claiming this system is putting out, or this amp or preamp. This is why people go out and they buy these amps. Wellington, I think, is one of them. They buy a lot of these amps off of Amazon. And you find out they're not that good. Yet people will brag how great they are. And then other people who start tearing them apart, who know electronics, say this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this capacitor is wrong, this is wrong. The way they built it is wrong. And they don't know how people claim it sounds good, or the amp shorts out because it wasn't designed right. So listening to people, even me, don't listen to me even. Take me as a grain of salt when I talk to you about something. I try to just tell you the honest God's truth. When I did a comparison against a brand new DAC, Macintosh DAC, a DAC that they use in several of their amplifiers and everything else, the same DAC Macintosh uses in a lot of their amps and preamps. It's the same DAC, and I compared it to a 30-year-old DAC of Conrad Johnson, and I did not find it to be superior. But yet people will say, well, it uses this chip and it uses this chip and it will do this and it will do that. I didn't find it to be superior after 30 years, because people never want to tell you the truth because it will hurt their image on YouTube or in the magazine because they need to get another piece of equipment. I bought the equipment myself. It's a nice sounding DAC, I will admit it, but do I think it's as musical or has the right timbre and everything that I want for my system? No. But it does sound good, and it's a good backup. It plays SACDs, which my Conrad Johnson does not play SACDs. It's got some versatility. In fact, I could do an A-B comparison between that DAC and a Conrad Johnson DAC very easily. A-B, the same disc. I could A-B it very, very easily. And I could hear that I like the Conrad Johnson better. I still play it to this day. It's made of a lot better parts. That DAC, I think, weighs like 11 pounds, the Macintosh DAC, where the Conrad Johnson DAC here weighs over 30 pounds and has a lot better parts, floating chassis to isolate things, walls to isolate power supplies and everything else in the DAC, where the Mac does not have that. The wiring in the Conrad Johnson is all silver, whether that makes a difference or not. But what I'm saying is a 30-year-old DAC still sounds to me more musical than a brand new DAC with the newest technology. So it kind of makes you wonder, the same as this. Or when you buy a receiver, it's all metal back there. There's no brass. And yet people say, oh, it sounds very good. And it does. It sounds decent for what you're buying. Or you may buy some older equipment, Carver equipment. Or you may buy the phase linears or something like that. Or the older Marantz that was made in the 60s. How everybody raves about the amps and preamps of the old Marantz. All steel. Wasn't brass. It was just steel. In fact, it wasn't even plated. It was just bare metal in the back there. Yet people claim it sounds very, very good. And it does. It's very musical, sounds very good. So I wanted to bring this up because people make a lot of hype about connections, and they will use words like really makes a big difference or very superior than just using the steel. And yet, if you really bring them down to it and say, if I buy it and do it, you guarantee that I will hear a difference. That's what you're saying. If I don't, will you give me all my money back? They won't do it. They will not do it. Well, you told me it's going to make a difference. And if it's going to make that much of a difference, I should be able to sonically hear it for the price I'm going to be paying. But they won't do it. Because sonically, they know it's so minute if it does make a difference. And they know that on some systems, it won't make a hill of beans whether you do it or not. That's what I'm trying to bring up in this video. Don't have people tell you what you're supposed to be hearing. They can give you some insight to what they're hearing. Same as me, I can tell you about all kinds of CDs that sound good on my system and what to hear, listen for, but you listen to it on your system. You may like it and you may not like the CD. I know there have been records and CDs that have been brought to my attention. One of the reviewers uses a CD, and I watch him once in a while. He's from Canada, and he says he uses this CD as a reference CD. And I thought, well, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I'll go out and buy that reference CD that he's talking about. So I went out and bought the exact same CD he has, the exact same piece of garbage. It sounds like garbage on my system. It's like, are you kidding me? You use this CD as a reference? It sounds like total garbage. Then I've had other people on YouTube talk about CDs, that how they use them because they sound good and what to listen for. I bought them and they sounded great. Great sound staging, great tonal quality, great timbre, everything. So there you have it, where one person's saying he uses a reference CD that on my system, I can play it for you because I have it. It sounds like garbage. And I guess he uses it as a reference CD. It's like, I wouldn't use it as a reference CD ever. So people tell you, if you have steel connectors, don't get all involved in thinking that if I have some old speakers and I like them and they have steel connectors, don't worry about it. The difference it's going to make may be so minute, or it may not even be audible for you to even hear. So don't make a big thing out of it, is what I'm basically saying. And don't forget, when we do something to our systems, we usually convince ourselves what we have done is going to do something. Because I still remember today when a piece of equipment came out and it was reported that it improved the sonics of your system. This is by a well-known manufacturer. And that equipment does not exist anymore. And I went to the salon to listen to it. I don't hear nothing. But one of the people with the Chicago Audio Society bought one, had 30 days to listen to it, and I remember that, and he was inviting everybody over to come listen to it. Does it sonically make a difference like the manufacturer claimed it would make? It was finally brought up. They brought it, they put it on my system, and they tried it out. There's about 7 people there. Finally, I remember it as plain as day. The president of the club, his name is Rich Sachs, finally said, "Pat, you have the Emperor's new clothes. Take it back." It didn't do anything sonically to help anything. Didn't help my system, didn't help his system, but yet it was claimed if you went to the salon, "Oh, can you hear that? Ooh, do you hear it? It's got better sound staging, better depth, better timbre, better, better, to convince you that you need to go out and buy it." Until finally, I mean, he was going to keep this. It was over $2,000. He was going to keep this piece of equipment till finally everybody told him it's not doing anything. Sonically, it's not improving anything. Take it back. And the next day, he packed it up and took it back because it sonically didn't make any difference on his system, which he had Dunlavy speakers, if I remember. Huge speakers. I think they were 6, 7 foot tall Dunlavy speakers. They were big, beautiful speakers. Connected up, I mean, no holds bar on the cost of his system. And you couldn't hear anything. You couldn't hear it on my system. And they tried it on different systems and nobody could hear anything once you got away from the salon. So that's what basically what I'm telling you is don't be fooled about connectors are going to make a huge difference. Tell them, where's the guarantee? If it's going to make that much of a difference, you should guarantee it, right? It's going to make that much of a difference. You should be able to guarantee it. That you constantly got to keep upgrading it to get it better and better. Yes, sometimes upgrading helps. Sometimes cables can help. Sometimes just changing an amp or preamp to something better. As I've told you, I went to the gauntlet of nice equipment. I had the Pioneer SX1250, great little receiver, but of course it was not as good as the Conrad Johnson. It's good, but everything falls into a class of how good, better, and best. And the chief enemy of good is always best. Always is going to be that way. But don't get on that merry-go-round where you just got to keep buying and upgrading little stuff like this because it's going to make a huge difference. So until next time, happy listening.